Hello everyone, today we are doing the front shocks on this W163 ML500 and I'm going to tell you all about it. Let's dive right in. The job is actually a super easy one as far as the front shocks go. It's right here and all it requires is a 21 millimeter bolt in the front and I believe it's a 17 millimeter nut on the top, but we'll be removing this and it has these 10 millimeter plastic fasteners. I don't know exactly how many there is. I want to say there's about 8 or 10 of them. We'll just pull this out of the way so that we have easy access to the nut on top of the strap. But let's talk about some part numbers and prices. The shocks were purchased on Auto House AZ, and for the front shocks you can either get Bilstein B4s or you can get Bilstein B6s for the front and rear. But unlike the front, the rear does not come with the spring. You would have to get it separately, and then you would have to disassemble and reassemble the rear shock assembly. But that's not the point of this video. We're just going to stick with the front shocks. Bilstein B4s, the difference between a B4 and a B6 is the stiffness of the dampening of the shock. And at 2025 prices, B4s each go for about $98 before taxes and service charges such as insurance and the sales tax and all of that. So you're looking at a little over a couple of $100 just for the front shock. Let's move on to taking this thing apart. But before I move on to taking it apart, let's talk about part numbers. The part number for the front shock on the box it says that it's or even on the shock itself, it's right here. 19, 29, 38, 99 for the front. And we're going to talk about how this thing only gets installed in a certain direction. It comes with all the hardware, meaning the nut and the bushings and the washers, but it does not come with the big bolt. You will have to reuse the original one. So that's the part number for the shock. So let's dive right in about removing the actual shock. Come on, Rosie, move out of the way. Obviously, we had to jack up the car and remove the wheel. It has, I believe, 17 millimeter lugs, and we'll talk about the torque for the lugs at the very end. But in the meantime, what we'll do is remove this plastic fender shroud to access the top of the shock absorber 17 millimeter nut. So let's do that. Once we get all the plastic fasteners, I thought there'd be more. There's only 6 of them. We could go ahead and remove this plastic. Can be a bit of a pain, so just be careful you don't hurt yourselves, guys. Okay, we get this out. Make sure you don't gouge your fingers like I just did. And then once it's out, here it is. The nut is right on top of here. We now have full access to get the job properly done. The next thing we're gonna do is, being that this is an original shock, and 274,000 miles later, it's never been replaced. We'll put a little bit of lubricating oil in the nut to facilitate the removal, and we will also just prop up the front suspension a little bit so it doesn't drop on us when we disconnect the bottom bolt. So let's go ahead and lift up the front suspension. We will do so from the bottom ball joint. Just enough. This should be enough right there. All right, and we can now disconnect the bottom and top bolt. All right, so if you have an impact, better use the impact, and it's a 21 millimeter. If not, you can use half-inch drive ratchet with a 21 millimeter bolt. Here it is. Bottom shock is loose, or the bottom mount of the shock is loose. In this case, the top nut is actually a 16 millimeter, and what we'll do is that what I did before I loosen it up, I put some lubricating oil or penetrant fluid because the nut is rust. So what you'll need to do so that the piston of the strut doesn't rotate on you when you loosen up the nut, you're gonna hold the top with either a Nipex, or channel locks, or something to hold the shank of the piston while we loosen up the 16 millimeter nut, like so. So the shock is finally out, and pay attention to how the stacking of the washers is, because the new washers are like the old washers, but the way they are mounted on the shock in the frame is a little different. Now, the reason why the shock is getting replaced, because it has lost its dampening abilities. Some cars have torsion bars and springs, which what that does is amortize any bumps, and what the shock absorber does is it dampens those amortization. This shock had lost its dampening abilities to stop the amortization of the spring or torque wrenches and causing an uneven wear on the tires, eventually inducing a vibration. That kind of wear on the tire is called cupping. And I don't know if you could quite see it on the tire, but it's not wearing properly. It's more prominent in the back than it is in the front. And the reason why you're seeing that in the back and not in the front is because I rotate these tires every 5,000 miles to get the max life out of these tires. But this cupping was getting on my nerves because the vibration is becoming ever more prominent, and you can feel it and you can hear it. Reason why these shocks are getting replaced. Now, these are the original shocks, like I told you. See it? Still has the Mercedes emblem on it. At 274,000 miles, these should be replaced every about 100,000 miles or so. So let's go ahead and put the new shock in, and I'll tell you all about the torques and whatnot. Okay, we can now install the new shock, and the way the stacking of the washer goes, you get one of the washers first with the small hole, like so. You insert one of the bushings, like so, and you insert this right here, like this, and you insert the shock in here. Okay, then the next on the list is the one with the big hole, like so. Then again, another rubber bushing, the other washer with the small hole on top, and finally the nut that I misplaced. Stand by. Oh. And the new nut, 17 millimeters. All right, let's torque it down. Once you have the nut set on top with an adjustable wrench like this one right here, or a 7 millimeter, what you do, you hold the shank on top of the strut, either with a 7 millimeter wrench or with an adjustable wrench. And once you have the nut set, which is nice and snug, you're going to torque it to 30 newton meters, or 22.19 foot-pounds. I'm going to go to 22.5, but be mindful that when you torque it, you put the crowfoot at 90 degrees so that you don't change the length of the arm, because torque is a function of the force applied times the length of the arm. That's why even the dog bones, you put them at 90 degrees, just like this crowfoot. You're going to put it at 90 degrees of the torque wrench so that you don't affect the actual torque specs. So once you get that done, you get in there and you torque it like so. That's it. 22.5. This baby is torqued down. We can now move to the bottom. Okay, once we get the top torqued, we can now do the bottom. Make sure you clean the threads of the bolt. We're going to put some Loctite 242 on it, like so. All right. We're going to insert this bolt in. Now, like I said, the beveled part, see how this is? If you can see this part here, this one goes on the inside, inside the recessed area of the lower A-arm. Put the bolt in. Now the torque on this is 130 Newton meters, or 95.88 foot-pounds. I'm gonna go to 96. So we're gonna go ahead and get it started. Once you get the bolt nice and snug, we go ahead and torque it to 96 foot-pounds, or 130 Newton meters. That's 21 millimeters. Now, as always, guys, my recommendation is make sure your stuff is properly calibrated so that you always have the proper torque applied to the hardware. And here we go. This is done. And the remaining steps, guys, it's pretty easy. Just go ahead and release the tension on the jack of the suspension so that this goes down. Put the shroud back in with your 10 millimeter plastic bolts nice and snug by hand, nothing crazy. You slap your wheel back on. This is a great time to rotate your tires. I usually rotate them every 5,000 miles, halfway between oil changes. And once you have the wheel back on, the 17 millimeter bolts, as per the owner's manual, you all should have one of these. The owner's manual, you go to page 269. Torque spec is 150 Newton meters, or 110 foot-pounds for the wheel lugs. All right, guys, what you did on the right, you're gonna do on the left. It's essentially the same job. Hopefully, as always, guys, I hope this video was of help to you, and we will see you at the next one. Take care.